with NSE index up by 1.92% at the close of today's trade. The market index actually closed the year by 51.3%. That's exactly the performance of NSE Offshore Index in 2020. If you factor in the the low of 21,399 basis points, that's actually far more than that. So that should give you an average of 60 percent. But if you go with the beginning basis point, as at January, we're looking at 51.3 basis points. So that's not bad. That's quite impressive. Knowing fully well that the year 2020 has been an eventful one, shaped by a lot of events that was naturally planned for, from the COVID pandemic that actually um, moved a lot of businesses online, and then forced consumers that were not used to online shopping to start buying or shopping for essentials on the internet, and then to a lot of things like the CBN policies that is aimed at discouraging investment in Treasury Bill, and then also pushing the banks into increasing their private sector credit. A lot actually contributed to this move. And the key question right now is what's going to happen in 2021? Should we expect the same performance? Should we expect the same move in the year 2021? So let's quickly look at the index, and then also um, try to pay attention to some of the key indices that I always like to look at. So I think this is actually my first time looking at sub indices and then sharing my own view on this YouTube video. Now, if you've not subscribed to this channel, I'll advise you hit the subscribe button, and then feel free to share your comments, because I'm going to be dishing out a lot that you need to know, and also move your portfolio um, higher. Now, the NSE Ocean Index closed today's section at 40,270 basis points. So the almighty support region that I've been talking about, which is 40,000 to 41, 42, is actually closed. So you need to start paying attention to your portfolio, because the index right now is approaching an overbought region. Now, I expect the index to keep the momentum in January. Now, this is why I said so. Now, this is the monthly chart of the NSC. The MSCD crossover is still showing that the buyers are still in charge of the market. We are still in a very strong bull market. Now, the RSI right now it's at 70.24. So that's this like an overbought region right now. So we may not see a sharp reversal from now. I still feel that the index will still go up in January. But right now you need to be very careful. This is a time, or this is the point where you would have to be very careful not to be caught up in a massive correction that would likely be happening very soon. Right now, the index is at the overbought region. So for me, so I think that even though I'm still going to be buying some stock, I would have to be very careful not to think that the index will go as high as I expect. So the run that we're looking at, that actually that we've witnessed so far in 2020 may not be replicated in 2021, even though I still feel that the NSA index might still close in a positive region in 2021. One of the key drivers is the CBN policy. So CBN is still aimed at supporting the market. Besides, in their last meeting, the central bank governor categorically stated that the stock market performance is a leading indicators for them. So if they are actually interested in pushing the economy, or probably trying to help economy recover, they are going to be enacting policies. They are going to be supporting policies that would probably um, help the markets sustain the bullish run which we've seen so far. So that's exactly what I think. Now, what are the key events that would likely shape the market in 2021? Now, one of the things I am looking at right now is the CBN stance on its monetary policy of maintaining a lower rate. So as long as CBN is still in the business of lowering rates on MPC rate, I mean, and then leaving T-bills, blocking institutional investors out of automobile, and ensuring that there is actually more funds, private sector credit, I mean, more funds that are being pushed into the real sector of the economy. I still feel that 2020 will still be a bullish market, but it's not all the stock that would eventually replicate the same performance. It's not all the stock that would do well. A lot of stock are overbought right now. So the question is, how do I pick the best stock to buy in 2021? How do I ensure that I align my portfolio to some of the best stocks or this best sector? Because if a stock is to do well, it has to start from the sector. The sector has to benefit from government policy. So that's exactly what I think you should pay attention to. So how do we resolve this particular puzzle right now in trying to fish out the best stock, and from which sector are we going to be getting the best stock in 2021? Now, let's quickly look at the sub indices of the NSC market. We're going to look at the NSC Consumer Index. We're going to look at the Oil and Gas Index. We're going to look at the Industrial Index and then the Insurance Index. So we want to see the index that are still not overbought. We want to see index um, that are still bullish, the index that still has more room to run. We don't want to buy stocks in an index that is largely overbought. So we want to ensure that this index is not overbought, it's still showing a massive bull run, and then we have policies to back up that bull run. So that's exactly what I think we would be looking at. So to a very large extent, this will help us uncover sectors that would likely be a leading performer, a leading or top performer. Now, let's still put this on hold. The NSE All Share Index is still in a bull run right now. Now, based on the last run, that's in 2017, you can see how the index actually moved to 44,343. So our key resistance still sits around 40,000 to 43,000 uh, region. Note, resistance is not a region, sorry, it's not an exact price. Resistance is a region. Nobody can predict the actual point an index will get to before it start pulling back. But we can actually um, gauge, or we can measure, we can have an idea of that region where we think that the index will appreciate to before a massive correction will eventually take place or profit taking. So for me, I think 40,000 to 43,000 it's a key region to watch out for right now. So the NSE Austria Index is now at 40,000 basis points. RSI is approaching overbought. So as once RSI begins to approach overbought region, you need to be very careful. There are still policy to support the run. We do no doubt. The index is still going higher. Besides, as investors look forward to dividends in first quarter, we are going to be seeing more run. But you need to note the index is at overbought region. So that is one key point you need to be aware of. Without this, you may not be able to get the best out of the market. But when you understand where the index is right now, you begin to consider you begin to take effective risk management strategy, or adopt an effective risk management strategy to be ensured that to ensure that you are not actually exposing a larger portion of your portfolio. So even when you buy into a stock, you ensure that you quickly take profits, because at this point, profit taking should be your watchword. Don't expect to be in a stock for so long if you are a growth investor, or if you're buying strictly for capital appreciation. But if you're buying it for dividends, fine. But for someone that's actually seeking capital appreciation, the index is approaching overbought region. You need to be sure that you need to be very smart about your entry and exit strategy right now. So that's what you need to know um, as far as the NSE Ocean Index is concerned. So let's look at the subsectors of the index. Now, the first subsector we'll be looking at is the NSE Industrial Index. This is NSE Industrial Index. Now, look at the NSE on Industrial Index. Under the NSE Industrial Index, we have stocks like um, Dangote Cement, we have stocks like Lafarge, we have BUA Cement, and the likes. So these are the stocks that are driving the index right now. So notice one thing. This is a monthly chart. The first thing I want to look at, it's my MACD. So we notice how the index seems to follow every bullish cross that we've experienced in the past. From 2017, we have the bullish cross, and we see how the index moved from 1005 up to 2300 before it pulled back significantly. Now, you can see when we had the bearish cross, you can see how the index also followed the same path until the recent bullish crossover that we had, which started in December 2019. And since then, the index has moved from a low point of 1000 up to 2000 basis points. Now, notice the RSI. The RSI is at 71. So NSE industrial index right now is also overbought. So if you're looking at buying into stocks like Dangote Cement, Lafarge, and BUA Cement, you also need to be sure that you are buying to stocks that are not an overbought region. Now, generally, for someone that wants to buy the index that owns Dangote Cement, uh, BUA, and then Lafarge, and any other industrial stocks in that index. If you're buying them at the same time, you need to also be mindful of the fact that the index is overbought right now. So if you're buying into Dangote Cement, I think Dangote Cement still has more room to run for dividend sake and also the share buyback um, announcements. So, but the index is overbought right now. So you need to you need to pay attention. You need to know this so you don't become someone else profit. Someone else doesn't take profit with your own entry. So that's what you need to know. Now, the last run that we've had before, you notice how the index moved up to 2300. So right now the index is still at 2052. So with any additional move that we might be seeing next month, which is January, I feel that you need to be very careful at this point, and just to be sure that you're not um, just ensure that you're not buying into stocks that are overbought. So let's look at some of the stocks in that index. We have a stock like Dangote Cement. Now this is Dangote Cement right now. Now Dangote Cement at this stage is largely overbought. You see right now. So even if we were to experience additional bullish run right now, you just need to be sure that it's driven by FOMO, fear of missing out. On the chart, the index is overbought at 71. So we might see additional move to the upside, but just note that the index is overbought. So if you're buying right now, ensure that you are not holding in for a long time. This is very important. Then if we look at stocks like Lafarge. Now, if you look at stocks like Lafarge too, Lafarge right now the RSI is at 55. So Lafarge still has some room to run, but I want to see the how the result pushes this particular projection. Okay, but generally, I don't think I would want to buy into Lafarge right now because the stock is currently um pulling back or is finding support at 50-day SMA. So before I jump into Lafarge, I want to see a clear close above the 50 days moving average. So that's for Lafarge cement. Okay, so that's for other. The same thing also applies to other stocks like BUA cement. You can see BUA cement how the stock has moved um massively in 2020 from 30, 33 up to I think 80 or thereabout 70 or 76, getting close to 80 naira per share. So that's the NSE industrial index. So let's look at other index um, right now. We have the NSC Insurance Index. So look at NSC Insurance Index. So the insurance index too is also at the overbought region right now. You can see the RSI is at 75. So largely overbought. So I don't think I want to I want to expose my portfolio to the insurance stocks. So if I have insurance stocks, I might want to cut down a little bit or buy into the few ones that I think has a lot more potential, and that's Lasaco. That's the only insurance stocks that I own right now, because of the fact that it's one of the highest yielding stock. I think the company will definitely attract a lot of buying interest ahead of dividend payment date. So that's for insurance. So for generally, if you're looking at getting exposure to that sector, just know that the insurance index is overbought right now. So look at the MACD. The MACD is largely overbought. The index has cleared the previous uh, resistance, that's during the last bull market, which is 157 basis points. So the index is currently at 180. So pullback is imminent at this point. So let me look at the NSE insurance index on. So you can see here it's largely overbought. So if you're looking at exposure to the insurance sector, I think you need to be very careful right now. So you might also need to consider few insurance stocks and then ensure you're not buying the ones that are overbought. It has to be a solid or fundamental reasons you're actually moving into that stock, or else you might be buying a stock that is largely overbought. So take note of that. So this is Lasaco. Now I'm buying into Lasaco because I feel the company still has a bit of upside run before pullback, and I also think it's going to be an investor's stock in 2021. That's before dividends, but after dividends, expect massive pullback. So that's NSC Insurance. Then we have NSC Consumer Sector, Consumer Goods Sector. Let's go down. Okay, so this NSC Consumer Goods Sector. Now, the NSC Consumer Goods Sector right now still has more room to run. Now, for the fact that the index is not overbought, number one. Now, look at the RSI. RSI is still 50. Now, from the last run that we had before, you can see how the RSI moved to 68 before the pullback. So, right now, the index is at 50. Now, from the MACD indicator, we see that the buyers are still in control of the market. So as it is right now, NSC consumer sector still has more room to run, and this is supported. I said something that even when I'm going to be explaining each of these indices, I think we'll also be looking at sectors to support their bullish run. Now, the consumer sector, which is basically driven by manufacturing companies and the retail-based companies, it's actually receiving a lot of boost and support from the government, and then coupled with the fact that the rising inflation trend seems to be bullish for consumer goods company, because these guys are able to increase the price of their products and take advantage of that to boost their operating margin. So I think one sector that still has more room to run in 2021, it's the consumer goods sector. So from our chart, I think it's a sector that you need to watch closely in 2021. Now you can see that the MACD cross, even though it's still not very fresh, but I think it's still at its early stage right now. So we might still see more run on this particular index. So one sector to watch next year is the NSC consumer goods sector right now. So take note of that. That's one sector you need to watch. And it's in this sector that you have companies like Flour Mill, you have company like NASCON, you have company like Honeywell. So, and these are companies that sell essential products. If the government uh, announce another lockdown next year, I think one of the key things that we're going to be watching out for next year is a possible potential lockdown as COVID cases, excuse me, as COVID cases increases exponentially. So if the government announce another lockdown, I think the demand for these essential items might also go up, as we've seen in 2020, which is around February, March, and April, where we had that's the peak of the lockdown. So this is also going to push this company stock to the upside. So we're also looking at companies like Presco and Okomu Oil. So these are companies that fall under the NSC Consumer Goods Index. So one sector to watch next year is NSC Consumer Goods Index. From the technical perspective or technical point, this industry has more room to run, as I've explained here. And then from the fundamental angle, the demand for their product will still help drive their financials or their quarterly results in the coming months. So look at this index very well, and then pay attention to the trend as it unfolds. So that's one index I would be watching closely in 2021. Then another index that I'm looking at, the NSE Oil and Gas Index. Now, the oil sector has been largely affected by the COVID um, pandemic, and to the extent that we could see how we saw how oil prices plummeted down to I think less than 20, 10, 15, $20 before recovering from that level. So now, if you're to experience, or if the same thing is going to happen next year, like if we're to witness another lockdown, global lockdown that might actually affect demand, that might put this particular sector at risk again. But if it's not going to happen, next year might be a year of recovery for oil and gas stock. Now, looking at the chart of oil and gas sector, we can see that there is a fresh cross on um, on the chart right now. That's on the monthly chart. So the MACD cross here is a bull sign that recovery in 2021 might help attract more demand for oil, and that is also bullish for oil companies. So with this recent crossover that I'm seeing right now, I think this is another sector you might need to watch closely. So technically, I have a bullish crossover on the NSE Oil and Gas Index. So, but like I said, I still want to see additional proof. I still want to see additional policy or maybe additional fundamentals to support this bull run. So NSE Oil and Gas has been beaten in 2020. So 2021 might be a year of recovery for NSE Oil and Gas index. So you can see that the MACD crossover on this NSE Oil and Gas index is also bullish for oil stocks. So pay close attention to some of the oil stocks in this sector, and then ensure that into these companies. So I'm going to be sharing more picks on this in this sector going forward. So if I'm going to do additional research in NSC oil and gas sector to see if there are companies that would likely benefit from the emerging trend in the oil and gas sector. But the run in this sector may not be as massive as expected in the consumer goods sector. So let's look at another sector. We have the banking sector. Now, if you look closely too, the banking sector is also taking the same shape as the NSE consumer goods sector. Now, the crossover on the NSE banking sector is still very fresh. So, despite the huge run that we have seen in the banking sector, so I think one of the top performing sectors to watch next year will be the NSE uh, banking index. Now, the RSI on the banking index is still at 56. It's not over, but yet there's still room for this index to run. And then the MACD crossover is still fresh. You can see. So going by the last crossover that we had in 2017, witness how the index went up to this level, pull back a little bit there before the big run. So I'm expecting a huge run on NSE banking index in 2021. So the two sectors that I'm going to be watching next year is NSE banking index and NSE consumer goods sector. Now, if you look at the overall CBN policy in 2020, you will notice that the CBN the CBN has been trying to encourage private sector lending. Now, by encouraging private sector lending, it means that they are looking at boosting the manufacturing sector. They're looking at helping the retail and consumer goods company to thrive. And that's why you see them pushing in more funds into the agricultural sectors of the economy. Now, with the lower rates, these guys are able to borrow at a without paying more on cost of funds, without paying more on finance cost. I mean, so and that also contributes to a lower uh, cost when it comes to um, operation cost of operations too. So that, for me, I think that the NSE consumer goods sector is going to be one of the hottest sectors to watch in 2021, and I've explained the reasons. Inflation is bullish for consumer goods company, as this company have that power to boost the price of their product. Number two, the demand for their product is still at all time high. And I think if there is any lockdown that's going to happen again in 2021, that's also going to support the demand for their product. That's very important. So, and then food, we know that the government have been looking at driving self-sufficiencies and all that. So that's also other supporting factor to this to my predictions. Then the banking sector, the CBN stance on monetary policy is bullish. Is I think it's one of the reasons the banking sector have been one of the best have been doing well in 2020, and I think that also continue in 2021. Cost of funds for each of these banks are actually at the low level right now. Most investors don't know where to put their money. They don't have any choice than to keep this money in the bank. So it's easier for these guys to make more money. And then as the government opens up border too, so that's also a bullish um, factor for the consumer goods sector, as they also have an opportunity to export their products at a lower cost, which I think would help drive their revenue in 2021. And this signing of the African Free Trade Agreement, so I think it's also another opportunity for these guys to do well. So, from technical perspective, the NSE banking sector and the consumer goods sector are my two topics right now. I've already explained why I think these guys or this sector will do well. So, uh, if you have questions on any of this sector, or if you have additional points to add, feel free to share on the comments section. For me, I've been able to explain the two sectors that I'm going to pay attention to, knowing fully whether they actually have a more or a greater upside potential in 2021 by look after I've looked at the MACD on my chart. So MACD freshly crossover on my monthly charts. It's brewing on showing that the banking sector is one sector to watch out for, and then the consumer goods sector is another sector to watch out for in 2021. So those are my two top sectors to watch out for in 2021.